YouTube, Kamen Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kamen Rider Zeztz, Episode 8, the start of another two-parter. This time the mystery is in a kitchen, revolving around a chef's dream and a poisoning, and we have investigations going on in the dream and real world. This wasn't as much of a hybrid episode like the last two were, where it felt almost equal parts kind of formula of the week and progressing the plot. This felt more leaning towards case of the week, but we did get little nuggets of things that progressed things. Like, for example, when the detectives are investigating, we find out Fujimi's previous partner suddenly resigned, and he thinks it was involved with, I think they call them black cases or something. That's racist. You think he's black. So that was a bit interesting, gives him a little bit more motivation. We got little tidbits about their characters early on, but it's nice we're getting a little bit more about that, because for the most part they've just kind of been, not comedic relief, but the things I've enjoyed most about them is them working with Baku and then just being in the, not the shop, being in the closet office and just setting up shop there. I think that's just kind of fun. So I did like that we got that little bit there. And then of course, obviously the end is kind of a major moment with Nox trying to pull something off. But everything, and Nem gets more involved. Like, Nem is obviously involved every week or every dream, but she actually gets a gadget. She gets to meet Zero. She's coming more into the fold. And there's this scene where they're speaking English to each other. And I've brought this up before. It's always just so funny to me when characters speak English in Toku. It's weird because obviously that's my native language. But when you're watching Toku, you're in a certain mindset, especially if you're binging or something. It just takes you aback, and it's for a split second you don't understand it or it sounds funny. But I like that we have her a little bit more involved there as well. Probably my favorite part of the episode was the investigation where he's investigating at the restaurant in the real world, and he has the gadget and he's testing for poison or whatever, and he's with his sister and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I just thought it was so funny because he's trying to keep it a secret, but he's also being really obvious with what he's doing, and she's just like, "What are you doing? You're being so weird." And it makes me curious when she's going to find out, and I'll talk about that again more in a minute. And we do end up finding out that the no one of this week, did I call it the no one again? I don't know why I'm so tempted to call the nightmares no ones. The nightmare of this week is actually the poison, and I like that. It takes a normal monster form, unlike last week's prison, which was a giant prison. But I like the uniqueness of yeah, here's a normal nightmare, and then you have one that was a liquid poison, you have one that was a prison. I think that's unique and fun. And then the fight ensues, and then we get an introduction of another new form. This time it's the recovery form, and he takes a shot, and then he winds up using the recovery form to heal the chef in the dream, and I think that's really cool. I think that I really like that we have these unique forms here, compared to usual, you'd have the water form, the air form, the fire form, and we do have the air form last week, but what I mean is the one from previous weeks when we introduced the blue form, it usually would be the water form, and I thought that was unique that it was based around air powers, and this one is green, which is kind of funny you have an all green one because of how prominent green is in the main suit, but that would usually be some sort of earthy powers, grass powers, you know what I mean? Not earthy powers, grass powers. And then it's a recovery form, it's a healer. I don't think we've ever had anything like that in Rider before that I can recall off the top of my head. I think that's really unique. I'll be curious to see if there's any weird ways he can use that in combat, but I thought that was really refreshing and interesting. And then of course, at the very end, you have him collapsing, and his sister finds him, and she's like, "Oh my god, my brother stopped breathing," and that was a good cliffhanger, because this episode, it was overall still enjoyable, but like I said, it felt more leaning towards, formula of the week, case of the week. There was cool bits in there that were happening. Like I said, I really liked the way recovery worked, but then that was a really surprisingly big cliffhanger, and drives home the interesting nature of the situation, and it's just funny that, this type of Nightmare on Elm Street-esque scenario stuff is happening around spooky season when I've been watching the Elm Street movies, and that's very much a thing. Black Phone 2 just came out, and they're like, what happens if you die in a dream? But we all know dead is just a word. But that was a cool cliffhanger, because I was wondering during the middle of the episode when he was investigating and the sister was suspicious, when is she going to find out? Because she's obviously very protective of him, and I feel like maybe she has to find out now. I mean, they could always come up with some nonsense. There's been plenty of series in Toku where they drag out the secret and they come up with a plausible explanation, but I feel like this big moment will be when she finds out. And now thinking about times when they drag out reveals, even when there's a moment where it seems like there's no way they can keep the secret, I can't help but think of Smallville and how long they drug out all those reveals of his identity and his powers or whatever. But yeah, still enjoying the series. I'm really curious to see what happens next week in regards to if his sister finds out or not and how everything else shakes out. But let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments as always. Till next time, Kamen Rider signing out.